That is exactly how I feel after watching this happen right before my eyes. How did this happen? Why would the creators do this to us? Why would they turn this beefcake into a twink? Why? In case you're confused, let's retrace our steps a bit. Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today we're discussing the blmanhwa Regas. If you're new here, I review all things BL, from heartwarming romances to chaotic messes. And let me tell you, Regas has a little bit of everything. Before we proceed, please note that this work contains, but is not limited to, the following tags: reincarnation, magic, Western fantasy world, dumb main character, dragons, royalty, child abuse, physical abuse, psychological abuse, childhood trauma, age gap, war, abusive characters, aggressive characters, animal characteristics, beasts, bloodlines, body change, caring protagonists, character growth, depictions of cruelty, godly powers, kingdoms, politics, power struggle, prophecies, schemes and conspiracies, second chance, slow burn romance, tragic past, and finally, twink main character. As this is a review, there will be some spoilers ahead. What even is a twink? I have seen this word twink used all over Twitter, but I never had a firm understanding of what it actually meant. According to Wikipedia, a twink is a gay slang for a man who is usually, but not always, in his late teens to 20s, whose traits may include a slim to average physique, a youthful appearance, and little or no body hair. The keywords here being slim, young, and hairless. Urban Dictionary takes this a step further and describes a twink as a young man regarded as an object of homosexual desire, usually a button. We've seen a lot of twinks in blmanhwa, obviously. From Haesung in Love is an Illusion by Fargo to Juha in Pearl Boy. A twink does not always have to be a button, and we've seen this in blmanhwas like passion and neuro-romance. A person is twinkified when they have their appearance or demeanor changed to that of a typical twink. Following this description, we can see that our main character here clearly fits this description. Another thing to note is that twinks in manhwas are often drawn to be more attractive and cuter than the other characters, because they are. Looking at the rest of the characters, would you be able to guess that they belonged to the same manhwa as the MC? Even his color scheme is different. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this appearance, don't get me wrong. He's very pretty. But the question remains, how did we get here when this was the blueprint? How exactly does such a thing happen? I've already said this, that the main character was a total macho man in the earlier chapters, and he gets, twinkified later on in the manhwa. Yeah, you heard that right. Twinkified. I honestly shook. But before we get into all that drama, let's talk about the manhwa itself. I mean, what kind of manhwa is this that the main character is literally swapping bodies so early on in the story? So, Regas is a BL fantasy romance with a medieval setting of nobility, mythical creatures, and reincarnation. This manhwa is based on a novel by SamK, and it revolves around a couple. The main character is an orphan of war, raised to be a Regas. His name is Abel, and the main lead is Karas, a prince destined to burn the empire to ashes. Quite literally, because he is a fire-breathing dragon. I know. Last week, I reviewed a manhwa about a dragon, and here I am again, reviewing a manhwa about a dragon. But I love dragons, okay? It's my thing. I can't help myself. So now you know I like Omegaverse. I also like dragons. A Regas, according to this world history and tradition, is a blonde twink trained to be companions of the ones who inherit the dragon's blood. That is the emperor and his heir. I wish I was joking about the physical description of a Regas, but no. That's exactly what is said in the manhwa. Abel, the main character of this story, is a Regas, but he's not like other Regas. I think the plural would be Regases. He's different. Unlike the typical perception of a Regas, Abel is the epitome of masculinity. Tall, powerfully built, and physically strong. Yet, beneath his intimidating exterior lies an idiot, a complete fool. We'll get into that in a bit. The reason he is brought into the palace, despite the fact that he does not fit the qualifications, is because the current prince has chased away every single Regas that was sent before him. The prince is a child and acts like a complete animal. Basically, he acts like a baby dragon, and he usually ends up harming those sent to care for him. Abel, our main character, comes into the palace and is able to be a good companion to the prince, not only because of his kind and open heart, but also because Abel himself is a living weapon. And that makes him basically indestructible to the prince. No matter how many times the prince tries to scratch, tear, bite, or hit Abel, he is unable to harm him. Nothing the prince will do can harm him. But an unruly and animalistic prince is hardly the most strange thing going on in the palace. There is a sinister political plot at play that could potentially bring the nation to ruin. Since this manhwa involves royalty, you probably already expect some political manipulation and schemes here and there. But whatever conspiracies lie beneath the surface are so much worse than you could ever imagine. Nothing prepared me for what was to come. There's the Council of the King's Hearts, and they are basically the royal advisors, and they help the king to make laws and assist in governance. They are sort of like the parliament or body of chiefs or lords or ministers, cabinet, whatever you want to call it. So this council orchestrated a cycle of abuse between the king, the queen, and the heir to the throne to make sure that they are forever under the control of the council. They control the king with his Regas. They got the queen addicted to this poisonous substance and use it to control her into abusing her own child. It is so sick. I felt sick to my stomach when I saw how she was treating her son, all because they got her hooked on drugs. I can't even imagine how the council came up with this plan. And each and every single one of them is completely okay with creating a cycle of generational abuse on the royal family. In this story, the royal family is just a family that has been broken and destroyed entirely by outsiders. This cycle of abuse is something that has been happening for so many years and generations uninterrupted. And what's more is that the council does not want to stop as the royal family. They intend to expand their control by distributing the substance to the general populace. Abel is brought to the palace for the sole purpose of becoming the prince's emotional clutch that would eventually be used to manipulate him. Abel gains the prince's trust and is able to show the prince what it feels like to be loved by another human being. Mind you, Abel is a full-grown adult and the prince is a child. The council starts poisoning Abel once they see the connection between the main character and the prince. Because it's part of their plan to traumatize the prince. Now, get this. Abel is quite dumb. He's a country bumpkin. He knows absolutely nothing. His life was very simple and straightforward before coming over to the palace where people literally breathe conspiracies and power struggle. The gag is that Abel is able to detect that he's being poisoned. In fact, he has known about the black potion. That is the addictive substance that was used on the queen. Even before he left the countryside to the palace, he saw it in a prophecy. This same prophecy states that the dragon, who is the prince by the way, will destroy the kingdom. And the best way to prevent this is for Abel as a Regas to comfort the prince, which is why he went to the palace in the first place. So despite knowing that he would be poisoned or harmed in any way possible, he sacrifices himself to comfort the prince and save his country. Well, Abel dies of poisoning and reincarnates 12 years later in the body of a twink. The creators took us from this capable, strong, and vigilant Abel to young Master Leo, who can barely sneeze without fainting. In his former body, Abel was able to fight wild bears, but with his current body, it's as if all the stats he had in strength were converted to beauty. What makes this even more ridiculous is that the kingdom is currently at war with the prince leading the said war. Abel immediately goes to find the prince at the war front after reincarnating with his weak body that can barely withstand an hour of walking. Sure enough, he ends up being a drawback and a liability on the battlefield. The prince and Abel finally meet after so many years apart, but none of them recognize each other. The MC can't see the prince in the bloodthirsty soldier he met. And of course, the prince doesn't know this fairy either, because the Regas he knows is a muscle man. It's actually quite hilarious when you read it for yourself. When I picked up this manhwa, I thought it had completely shattered common tropes, at least in the first few chapters. The main character wasn't the typical delicate pretty boy who instantly captures everyone's hearts. While he was somewhat clueless, foolish, scatterbrained, it stated his background as a simple country bumpkin that was very skilled in the things relevant to his upbringing, like hunting and farming and the likes. I genuinely thought I had found the perfect MC bottom, one who wouldn't faint at the slightest inconvenience. His lack of critical thinking skills could even be excused, as he was never taught how to develop them. I was drawn to the MC's uniqueness, that he was not a stereotypical slim bottom, and personally I prefer buff bottoms. So I was just like, oh, okay. He's not that pretty, but like his body is more of my type. So I approved. However, that changed when he reincarnated, turning the entire manhwa into just another trope. I had hoped the manhwa would either defy traditional conventions or add a fresh twist to them, but ultimately, it fell short. Another thing that really annoyed me is that the main character's stats drastically changed after his reincarnation. His characterization is not consistent at all. In the first volume, he's kind, a little smart, just a little, and he's able to do a lot to change the prince's life in the short time he had and the little power that was given to him as the Regas of the prince. However, once he reincarnated, the MC becomes insanely naive. It makes no sense for someone who was able to understand that they were being poisoned to not recognize the prince. I have illustrated the difference between the characters in this diagram. Here, in the first diagram, we can see that Abel is maxed out in stamina, strength, and speed. He's dumb, so his foolishness is high, and he's not pretty at all, so his beauty is non-existent. On the other hand, we can see that young Master Leo, although they are the same person, they have very different attributes. Young Master Leo is maxed out in the beauty department. In fact, whenever other secondary characters see him for the first time, they always refer to him as a fairy. But you can also see that he is low on speed, strength, and stamina, and even more foolish than he was in his previous body. Let's continue the conversation in the comments about the plot. And if you haven't read it yet, I suggest you do so immediately. You can't let this kind of interesting plot pass you by. Also, are you aware that the prince is a dragon? We established this in the last video. Dragons and BL equals good story. So what are you waiting for? Start reading it right now. We've already gone over the two main characters, Abel and the prince. Abel is a dumb twink and Karas is an abused child with tendencies of extreme cruelty because of his dragon blood. But there are other characters that are just as important. First, we have the master that trained Abel. May his soul rest in peace. We have the young master's butler, who diligently follows him everywhere he goes. Sir Ashla, the knight. Sir Melmond, the librarian. This evil guy, I hate him. This other evil guy, he disgusts me. And finally, we have the army guy. I would describe the art style in this manhwa as very simple. The character that has the most detailed appearance is the main character in his twink form, obviously. The dragon in this manhwa is very different from what we saw in Dawn of the Dragon. The one here is more of a Western style fire-breathing dragon. I would also say that the world building in this manhwa is pretty intense. We are given this crazy backstory between the dragon and Regas, insights into the political scene in the country, as well as what goes on at war. It's very detailed in all this, so it doesn't seem like the creators are skipping over important information. And you, the reader, you'll be able to fully absorb the plot. It's set in medieval times, where wars were fought with swords and shields. Even though magic is accepted to exist in this world, the characters are usually very surprised whenever something magical happens. which is odd but forgivable. So far, we've discussed the plot points and the characters. My favorite character was the young master's butler. The way he constantly agonizes over the MC is so amusing. I love it. And can we talk about that scene where the prince killed the bald king and his for entirely no reason? I like that part because it really shows the futility of war and how meaningless lives become on a battlefield. A lot of manhwas that deal on war just gloss over the realities of what happens on the battlefield, but I liked that scene. Before I continue, some people have been accusing this story of featuring grooming or shota, but this could not be farther from the truth. At no point during the prince's youth did the prince or Abel entertain any sexual or romantic thoughts or feelings toward each other. Because of the way the MC sees life and also his lack of self-esteem and his awareness of his appearance, Abel does not even consider the possibility that anyone would view him in that way. Let alone would he seek out romantic or sexual feelings when he was fighting for his life in the palace. Karas is so emotionally clueless that I'm guessing that it's going to take him some time to figure out or even develop romantic feelings for the main character. So anyone worried about grooming in this story does not know what they are saying. They should open their eyes and read the manhwa again so that they'll see what is really happening. What would I change about this manhwa? First off, Abel should never have become a twink. Secondly, I would make Abel just a little bit smarter. Having a main character that is so foolish is very frustrating. His kindness is an admirable trait. One of the main reasons I liked him, because he was able to extend a helping hand to the 8-year-old prince. However, his actions often border on sheer stupidity. He chose to sacrifice himself, leaving behind a child, fully aware of how dangerous the palace was, without any proper plan in place. His plan was just to die for the prince. And I know this was set in olden days, and dying for whoever you serve was an admirable thing, but it still did not make any sense. What's worse is that he never confided in his helpers in the palace about his intentions. What he did was also incredibly cruel. He kept promising the lonely child that he would always be there, only to abandon him in the end. Initially, I thought he was pretending to be a fool, while secretly being clever, like there was an undercover plan that would be revealed to us later. But that wasn't the case. He was just a fool through and through. Also, another thing I do not like is the fact that as soon as the main character was reincarnated, he started whining about meeting the prince. He showed no respect whatsoever about the young master's family, who had been eagerly and desperately waiting for him to wake up. He was only thinking about the prince. And he still does not see himself as the young master. He sees himself as Abel. But that's not the case. You're in a completely different body. The family obviously cared for him. Yet he selfishly forced his way out just to meet the prince. The least he could have done while living in someone else's body was to show some respect and kindness to the family and even the butler. But that's not the case. He just sets out to fulfill his selfish aims. What do you guys think? Are you TeamHunk or TeamTwink? Do you think the twinkification is justified? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you've read the novel, please do not spoil anything. I want to experience everything for myself. But seriously, I'm really enjoying Regas so far. It's a fun and engaging read with a lot of potential. I can't wait to see where it goes. Quick recap. Regas is about a dragon prince with his companion who was buff but died and reincarnated into this cute blonde after 10 years. The Regas has not recognized the prince, even after meeting him after such a long time. The plot is great so far and the art style is simple. I do not have any ratings for this because although we're already in season 2, it still feels like the story is just starting. And I think it's too early to make any judgments. So that's it for my Regas review. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give this video a like and subscribe to my channel for more BL content. And as always, thank you for watching. See you next time.